Well, is an ancient mystery behind the major events happening in our world today? Rabbi Jonathan Cahn shares startling revelations about the gods of old and how the spirits behind them are turning our world upside down. If you're enjoying Table Talk, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Remember to click on that notification bell to stay up to date on all of our latest posts. Well, he is a multiple New York Times bestselling author, and he's here to tell us about his latest book, and it is entitled The Return of the Gods. Please welcome our dear friend, Rabbi Jonathan Cahn.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, welcome. Hey there. You know, I just had this thought. It reminded me of Marcus, and that is with what you're doing and that you're uncovering and you are revealing truth concerning things that it's happening in the demonic realm, and the demons are crying out like Star Trek, Cahn!
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, they don't like what you're doing is what I'm saying.
No.
It's another whole level, but God has anointed you to do it, and there are angels posted around you, I am sure, and prayers. So do pray for Rabbi Cahn. Well, were the gods of ancient times merely creations from the mind of men, or was there more to it? The Bible reveals something pretty interesting about this forgotten mystery, and uncovering it could be the key to understanding what's happening right now in our world. So kind of just go back for people who maybe haven't heard you before and talk about how God showed you things that were happening in the Old Testament with ancient Israel. Your books have then taken those stories and brought to the forefront how those same demonic forces are working, and it's so visible. So let's just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, this is, as you know, we're watching things go so crazy in this world that even it's not only Christians, not only conservatives, even liberals are saying, this is crazy. This is they're even using the word demonic. This is crazy. We're transitioning children. It's madness. I mean, it's really irrational. What has taken over America? What has possessed America? And there is something that has. And so what if there was a mystery behind all of it that goes back to the ancient gods of the ancient world, of Babylon, of Mesopotamia, and that if these gods that, I took mythology in class, okay, it's all story. What if it's not all story? What if there's a link? I mean, there's of course story, but what if there's actually something real to these gods? And what if they came back? And what if they're at work now? And what if we could know their names, who they are, how they work, and where is it leading us? Where is it heading? And what can we do about it as believers? Well, in the Bible, most believers dealt with this. They dealt with a culture that had gods, with it. Well, here's the kind of setup from the Bible, where when it talks about the gods in Deuteronomy, it says that they worshiped the gods, and in the Psalms, they offered up their children to the gods. Actually uses a word that is the word shedim. Shedim means the entities or the spirits. It wasn't just God's fiction. There were spirits behind the gods. And so that's one. And then when they translated that word into Greek, when the rabbi said, okay, we got to have a Greek word for it, they came up with a word daimonia. We get the word demonic from it. And so, and when Paul says the pagans are worshiping idols and this, he says they're worshiping the daimonia, the demonic. And so what it's saying, the first thing is that there's something real to these things, number one. The second thing is that if all the nations were given to the gods, then they were given to the spirits. And actually you find, when you look at all the pagan world, you actually see signs of possession. Every culture has signs of possession. It's not something you just read in the Bible. All over, they spoke about people shaking, people tremoring, and the closer you were to the god, the more possessed you'd be. When, we read about the Oracle of Delphi, like they all came to the Oracle, this woman, she was possessed. She was shaking, foaming, and all that. And so you have this possession. Now the thing is that it's not just people who can be possessed. Cultures can be possessed. Nations can be possessed. I mean, look at Nazi Germany. That's a whole other thing. Possessed. Okay. So the thing is that now what changed? Because if we were alive back then in Bible times, it'd be all over. Gods were everywhere you went. That's weird that they were there. But what changed it was the one word, Jesus, Yeshua. He's the only one. He changed it because when he came, first of all, he had the power to cast out the spirits. We know that, right? But in the pagan world, the spirits are linked to the gods. So when he sent his disciples into Rome, it's a clash. You have the God versus the gods, the spirit versus the spirits. You know, when you read the book of Acts, you read that, first the possessed woman is following Paul. He casts her out, and all the idol makers get in an uproar. Right. The other part, the whole city gets in an uproar because of Artemis, the god. They want to kill the disciples because they're taking them away from the gods. So you have this war going on. Actually, the great persecution of Christians, you know how it started? One of the oracles gave a word to the emperor saying, basically, persecute them. It came from a possessed woman speaking for a god. And so, and the big thing was back, if we were alive back then, it was that Christians, you bow down to the gods or we throw you to the lions. It was all about the gods. But finally, the gospel prevailed. So what happened? All of a sudden, the whole culture was cleansed. The gods were driven out. You know, the temples were empty. And what that means is the spirits were driven out. So this is, you put it this way, this was the greatest mass exorcism in the world history. Wow. And that's what it was. And everywhere the gospel went, same thing happened, mass exorcism. So when we talk about our culture is unique. The reason why the West is unique, it's the only culture that was exorcised. That's why it's unique. So this was the great exorcism, but there's a warning that Jesus gave. And people hear this and they think they kind of miss what he's saying. He said, if a spirit comes out of a man, it goes to the desert, you know, and looks for a place, doesn't find a place. Then it says, I will return to my home, my house. Goes back to the man, finds it all, the house is clean and swept, empty, says, I'm gonna bring my friends back. So he comes back with seven spirits, it says more demonic than itself, comes back, and then Jesus says the last state of the man is worse than the beginning. So in other words, he's worse being repossessed than he was when he was just pagan. But he doesn't say it's about a person, he says, so it will be with this generation. He's talking about a generation. And so when you take that warning to the largest scale, take it, our civilization was possessed, was exorcised. Here's the warning. If the West, if the West ever turns away from God, the spirits are coming back. And they're going to come back to the culture. And they're going to come back to repossess it. And the ancient gods that are going to come back. And so when you want to understand everything that's been happening for the last 50, 60 years, it is this.